Okay then. Let's get ready to go. So just about 35 seconds before we get started. And then I'll do my little introduction. But if you've got any friends that are joining the session, guys, always do encourage them to join the live Zoom coaching feed. More the merrier. And for those guys on the Zoom coaching feed, you can unmute yourself at any point and ask any questions. You can also use the RGT chat, and you can use the Zoom chat as well. It might be best to use the RGT chat personally. And here we go then. 3, 2, 1, off we pop then. So welcome to the Monday Assembly. This is our weekly group ride, live coach group ride. So tonight we are riding the Amstel Gold Course. We're doing 2 laps of it, and as I said earlier, super chilled. Take as much time over it as you want. We have got rubber banding on this evening, so hopefully we'll keep us mostly together. I'm going to ride along at around 2 watts per kilo, and then tonight's discussion topic, we're going to be talking about returning from illness and injury, and this is actually quite poignant. I was meant to race at the weekend. I was in a foul mood, so I picked up a bit of a cold. I was unable to race, so hence why we're doing a dive into this topic. Also, perhaps give me a reminder to follow my own rules. So that's what we're going to be talking about this evening. Please do get involved at any point. As I say, unmute yourself on Zoom, or feel free to use the RGT chat feed, or for those guys following us on the live stream, you can leave comments there, and we'll get back to you. Eventually we'll have the social media comments coming through at the same time as well, and we can just be across everything. But for now, RGT, Zoom, or leave your comments on social media, and we'll answer your questions after the fact. For now though, let's just chill. We're just riding at on a bit of a downhill section on the Amstel Gold Course. My RGT is being super jittery this evening, so for anyone watching the live stream, apologies for that. Hopefully it'll settle down at some point. Got various bits of technology all going on at once. But everyone okay on Zoom? You guys all alright? Yeah? Awesome, okay. Right then, so I'll get into tonight's topic then, shall I? So, as I say, tonight we're talking about returning from illness. It's currently a situation I find myself in personally, so I thought it'd be quite a poignant topic to cover. And it's also, how do I phrase this? One of the more stressful's not the right word, potentially frustrating aspects of being a coach is dealing with athletes coming back from injury or illness, because it requires a lot of discipline, guys. I would suggest even more so than going out and doing a hard session. Returning from injury or illness properly and doing it in the right way, it's so hard to do. It can. I'm experiencing it at the moment, which is why I wanted to cover this topic. I'm getting so incredibly frustrated about not being able to train properly. This is actually my first time on a bike in about a week, so hopefully I can talk my way through the whole session. But as I say, it can be such a frustrating thing to deal with, and it's really important that you approach returning to training with a really kind of logical mindset, and try and keep the ego out of the mix. It's something actually we talk about a lot, actually. It's removing the ego. It's all part of being an emotionally intelligent athlete, an athlete who's able to look after themselves and make sensible decisions and achieve that consistency we're always after. Okay, so that's one thing to kind of get out there right off the bat, is we always need to try and be as logical as we can and objective as we can when we're making decisions. Otherwise, it can make things worse, and quite seriously so. So I'm an asthmatic. I don't know if there's any other asthmatics on the Zoom feed or whatever, but if you train too hard when you're not right, Any other asthmatics will tell you it's just like a one-way street to a chest infection, which then takes about a month of antibiotics. Cheers for the wave, guys. Yeah, it then takes a month of antibiotics to get over. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's all about making a decision for the greater good rather than kind of satisfying your kind of short-term frustration and getting on a bike or getting out for a run. Yeah, you have to be super disciplined. So the advice that we give to our athletes when they're umming and erring about whether to train or not, whether they've got a bit of cold, or they've got a bit of a niggle, or they're just feeling really tired, and whenever they're umming and ahhing, our general sort of default advice is they're highly motivated individuals, and I'm going to suggest that those of you guys that are on RGT tonight, you're probably cut from a similar cloth. I mean, here you are spending your Monday evening indoors on a turbo trainer. That takes motivation. I don't know if there's football on tonight, but particularly if there's sport and you've chosen to do this instead. So yeah, our default position really is that if you're umming and ahhing as a highly motivated individual, the likelihood is you probably shouldn't be training. Okay, that's kind of the default, and that tends to cover most options, and it's the thing that whether my girlfriend and I are sort of throwing about whether either one of us should train or not, that's pretty much always where we come to a landing. She or I will say to the other, if you're umming and ahhing about it, you just shouldn't be doing it really, because that's kind of that indecision is probably your body telling you something. So that is if you take nothing else from tonight's session, which hopefully won't be the case, our advice when it comes to whether to train or not, if as a highly motivated individual, if you're umming and ahhing, it's best not to do it really, because I think all of us are quite instinctive animals, and we love our data, etc. Yeah, so rubber band is on tonight, guys. Just responding to the comment on RGT. Whether I've got the bot settings right is another question. But yes, that's your default. If you're umming and ahhing, and generally it works quite well as a way of controlling yourself when it comes to illness and injury. And as I say, we're very instinctive animals, so I think you'll know whether you're ready to return or not, and there won't be any indecision there. It'll be pretty clear to you whether you're feeling good enough. And I think the other message is don't rush, because it's better to have sort of short-term frustration rather than, as I say, it developing into something more serious. So you do have to think about the bigger picture, which is always very hard to do, I must admit. And then something else that if that doesn't really work for you, that kind of mantra, that kind of default setting, something else to consider is, would the session be fun or not? And by that I mean, would it be high quality? Would it be a session where you're actually achieving something? Because for me, I'm ignoring about whether to race at the weekend, even it was at least 40 mile an hour gusts, etc. So that in itself meant it wasn't going to be fun. But could I race under the weather and just poot around? And then my final kind of the thing that swung it for me was simply that: would it be fun doing that? Absolutely not. It'd be a slog. I'd get round, but potentially make myself more ill. And also, this is all meant to be enjoyable. Otherwise, why are we doing it? It's all meant to be fun. Even if you're a pro athlete, frankly, if you don't enjoy what you do, you shouldn't be a pro athlete. Find something else, something that you love, because life's just too short, isn't it, really? So I think those two questions, just ask yourself. One is going to give you quite a blunt answer, and the other one, I think, if you're not going to have fun, what's the point? Okay, there's something better you can probably be doing with your time. And what it all really comes down to is a point I mentioned a moment ago about consistency. Now, consistency, I feel it's a really useful word because it basically, consistency is the driver of athletic performance, it's the driver of development. If you can consistently piece together high quality training, you will improve. It's quite simple in that respect. But problem with the word consistency is sometimes people interpret it as meaning that means I need to be consistently doing every session. It really doesn't. Okay, no athlete I've ever really worked with has done every single session every week. And to be frank, if they are doing that, that in itself is a cause for concern, and would actually lead to me bringing it up and asking what's going on. You know, why are you suddenly doing all this extra work that you've not been doing previously? And the reason really why we're talking about consistency, rather, in that sense, not doing every single session. What we're talking about is doing those key sessions, making sure that each week you do those 3, 4, 5, however many really important sessions that align with your current goals and are going to push you in the right direction. That's what we mean about consistency. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. Just the question on RGT was about measuring overnight heart rate variability, etc. I'm going to come to that because that actually can be quite a useful tool. So I will be talking about that. Don't worry. But just continuing on with where we're at the moment. Let's try and get through some of this a bit more quickly. Yes. So we're looking at the bigger picture. We're looking at consistency. If that means a week's interruption as you kind of get over illness, but it's just a week, and then you're kind of feeding back into the training and you kind of mitigated that as small as you can, that's consistency. Okay, it's not perfection, but it's consistency in the scheme of things. So if you think about the 52 weeks of the year, pretty certain it's 52, and you know, you've got, I don't know, maybe let's say 3 of those weeks are interrupted by illness, that's pretty good going. Okay, and then the other sort of 49 weeks of the year, you've got good training. Obviously you'd have like weeks off for the end of season break, holidays, etc., etc. But just for the sense of getting through the point, you know, reducing the period to which you're ill to as small as possible. Yeah, it requires a great deal of emotional intelligence and kind of listening to your body and minimizing it as much as possible so you can get back to training. And now the next point I wanted to make was sometimes when you do get back to training, you are feeling kind of healthy again. There's usually still a bit of a hangover. So when you start back, you might feel that you're feeling quite sluggish, you're struggling a little bit. So I mean, as an example, right now I'm struggling to hold 2 watts per kilo. So, and that's okay, because I know what's going on with my body. I know that even though I'm kind of getting there, there's still going to be a hangover where my immune system's depressed, you know, potentially have a bit of inflammation on my lungs, all kinds of stuff going on, hormones out of whack, sleep is a little bit out of whack, etc., etc. So that's okay. So I know probably for like the next week, my training might not be tip top, and that is fine. Okay. Okay, all right, just give me a second, guys. We've got a bit of an issue on Zoom by those things. Okay. Yeah, sorry guys. We've got someone being a bit of a tosser on Zoom, I'm afraid. I'm just going to end the meeting, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. For anybody that's watching the live stream, we had a little bit of a gate crash on our Zoom chat. Yeah, that was one of the most bizarre things that's ever happened to me on a session. Anyway, so I'll just keep talking now for the benefit of the live stream, and hopefully any of the guys that are on Zoom can join us on the live stream and pick up where we left off. So I'll just repeat a little bit of what I was just talking about, just to give any of the guys a bit of time to get off Zoom and across onto Facebook. So as I've just been talking about, basically we're looking to mitigate the effect of illness as much as possible, condense it into as short a time frame as possible, and so we can get back to that consistency. One of the worst things you can do is rush back and make things worse. That goes for both illness and injury, and really just keep using that default setting. Really, if you're umming and ahhing about whether you're ready to train again, almost always suggest that you're probably not. Obviously there does come a point where you kind of have to force yourself, but really, generally speaking, like if you're umming and ahhing, it's probably not a good thing to try and force yourself. Okay, so once you do kind of decide that you're coming back, as I was saying before just before we got interrupted, there's going to be a little bit of a hangover from that illness. So you might feel that your training's not particularly great for the next week or so, and that's absolutely fine. And you have to give yourself a little bit of permission to kind of interpret your session more freely than you otherwise might do when you're on good form. You know, if you've got a set that's like an 8 out of 10, do it at a 6. You know, just kind of feed your way back into training. With our athletes, we have a bit of a protocol that we use for getting people back into training, and that's over the course of 3 days. So the first day, the way it works is if you want to start training on the first day, 30 minutes, super easy, no intensity whatsoever, and as I say, keep it exactly to 30 minutes. Even if you're feeling good, be strict with yourself with that. Keep it to 30 minutes. On the second day, you can increase it a little bit up to a maximum of an hour, but again, keep it low intensity. And even if you're feeling good, don't be tempted to throw in intensity or anything longer than an hour. And then on the third day, start to introduce a little bit more of the intensity. So nothing too crazy, just some bursts. Keeping it sub-threshold maybe, but just seeing how your body reacts. If not in the session, how it reacts afterwards. So as I say, on that third day, throw in a little bit of intensity, but not being too bad on yourself. Okay. And only once you've done that 3-day protocol can you really start to kind of work your way back into training proper. But just remember, there might be a week or so where you struggle a little bit, and that's absolutely fine. So there's another topic I was going to talk about. Actually, before we go on to that, I'll just answer the question that was brought up on the RGT feed, and that was about using overnight heart rate and heart rate variability. So heart rate variability is a really useful tool. I've actually met the guy who kind of came up with it. Had a really interesting chat with him. So as far as I'm aware, like the modern connotation, or the modern concoction of heart rate variability was originally created to try and diagnose heart defects and issues with that and prevent heart attacks, etc. But it's now being applied across the board, really, all kinds of medical issues, but also in terms of training. So heart rate variability is really useful, not only for potentially kind of highlighting upcoming illness, or the fact you've already got illness, you've got a bug in your system, but it's also quite good for managing your training load to a certain extent. All right. So the only real problem with heart rate variability is you need a big data set, at least 6 months of tracking your heart rate. And there's various ways as well of tracking it. So there's things like, having to do it every morning. You can get fitness trackers now that you wear all the time, which I imagine is pretty useful. Okay, looks like we're having some streaming issues as well.